We all know what English is. A language, right? But have you ever wondered who, where, when, why, and most importantly of all, how English was created? Well, to find out the answers to these questions, we need to go back thousands of years in England. The following is the history of English. England has been inhabited for about 40 to 50,000 years. But it is not just how long it has been a home for humans that makes it special. It's also its invention and history. About 2,500 to 3,000 years ago, Celtic people sailed to England and started living with the indigenous people already living there, such as the Britons, Picts, and the Gaels. These Celtic people, known as Celts, spoke various languages, such as Welsh, Irish, and Manx. With there being many languages spoken, the indigenous people and the Celts could not understand each other. Due to this, they may have added words to each other's languages, but any changes they did make were not significant in the creation of English. However, about 1,000 to 1,500 years later, English would start to become a language because of three tribes that traveled to England from Germany and to Denmark between 400 to 600 CE. These three tribes were the Angles, Saxons, and the Jutes. The language these tribes spoke is today called Anglo-Saxon. Yeah, the Jutes did not quite make it. These tribes ended up dominating England and their language mixed into the Celtic languages. Later on, Vikings, which came in between 700 and 1100 CE, also added their language, Old Norse, into the mix. This mixed language was spoken from the arrival of the tribes to 1066, and is known as Old English. You can consider this period of about 500 years as English in its alpha, because just like how video games start out as alpha and then continue to get updates, so did English. During this alpha period, England would become an official country on July 12, 927 CE. But that was not the only thing that happened during this period. One of the tribes, the Angles, gave England, and kind of even English, their names. The word England means land of the Angles. Yeah, the Angles were the most creative. The word English used to be Englic. It was just what you would call the Angles. Just like how Canadians are called, well, Canadians. Englic later on became English and came to be what you called the people who lived in England, not just the Angles. And of course, it also became the name of the language. Now, earlier I said that the mixed language stopped being spoken in 1066. If you're wondering why this was the case, it was because English got an update that same year, which was the Norman invasion. The Normans were a group of people from France that found England and decided to invade it. Dominating England, the Normans, who spoke French and Latin, added more vocabulary and language stuff to Old English. This caused the language to become Middle English. But that was not the only update. 200 years after the Norman invasion, Latin and French became the dominant language and English started to die. In fact, English was not used in court and was probably not even really taught in school anymore. While it was still spoken by regular people, it was not written and would have likely eventually died soon had it not been for one man, Geoffrey Chaucer. Chaucer was a poet who wrote his poems in Middle English, unlike other poets and writers who wrote in French and Latin. He created thousands of new words such as magician and universe and introduced more things in poetry. Due to the uniqueness of Chaucer's poems, they became immensely popular and the people started to actually write in Middle English. Middle English was the language spoken in England from the Norman invasion to about 1500. You can consider this period to be English in its beta. If you're wondering why Middle English stopped being spoken at around 1500 CE, it is because there were improvements in printing technology around that time. Written English began to develop further, and language things like spelling and punctuation were truly established. Furthermore, over time, pronunciation and grammar had changed. Additionally, more words were made, such as by William Shakespeare, who made more than 1,700 words. Yeah, a few examples being addiction, generous, belongings, and literally the word I. Due to all of these advancements and additions, Middle English became early modern English. Consequently, more pieces of literature were written in English. It was also during this period that England started to colonize other places and spread the language. Early modern English was spoken for roughly 200 years. You can consider this period of time as the English catapult.
Bruh.
From roughly the 1700s to today, we have been speaking in modern English. In fact, the very language I'm talking in right now is modern English. But if you're wondering why early modern English became modern English, it was because English advanced. Since England, which became the United Kingdom in 1707, had been colonizing all over the world, English had spread to become more of a global language. With people speaking the language practically everywhere, the English one country spoke was slightly different to others. Over the next few centuries, accents developed, spellings changed, and certain words stopped being used. However, despite the amount of time that passed, as in a few centuries, due to technology and social media, English could not change very much as people could talk to each other thousands of kilometers away. In fact, if technology had not had its way, it could have been possible that the average Canadian today would not be able to understand people from, say, Australia. Technology and social media kept English together, despite the distance between many speakers. Today, we speak a language that has changed over thousands of years and is the combination of Anglo-Saxon, Old Norse, French, Latin, and many other languages. In fact, the languages that created English are a blend of multiple other languages, and so are those languages too. English could very well be the product of thousands of other languages, which could very well mean that English is the product of billions of people. English was initially created in England, but is now being changed by the world. It was created as a way of communication and has progressed further in this task than any other language. When it comes to language, English is the greatest achievement of humanity, and that was its history. Thank you for watching.